I want to do today is I want to tell you a story about how I've thought about technology. And I think it's an important story because my thinking around technology has evolved over 12, 15 years of being involved in it. And so it starts like this. I started asking myself a very simple question. How do you succeed in a digital world? Because everyone wants to. Everyone wants to succeed in this world, and they're looking to technology as the main reason forward. Every time someone says to me, you own a digital agency, well, that's where the future is going, I politely disagree because it's where we are already. The world around us is a digital world, and so my question was, well, how do we succeed in it? And so asking myself this question took me down a very particular road. And that was this whole idea that technology had become this magic genie. This magic genie, you heard about it. All of a sudden, Facebook's the biggest thing on the planet. And there's this magic genie that says, well, if you could just get on Facebook, you'll be able to launch your business. You'll be able to make this thing happen. You'll be able to find a lover and a wife and a friend for life. It's this magic genie that will change everything in your world. And that's what technology offered us. And then we heard about Uber, and if we just built an app, we could be the next millionaires. And then we heard about some other projects that were all technology. And then we heard about our friend who had a startup. And every time you mention the word startup, you just assume technology. Because what business would be built today without technology embedded in it? And so this thing about technology is that the world and the media and everything around us points to the fact that technology is the success factor. And so I looked at technology and I said to myself, if that's what technology is about, then how are we going to start to build these things? Because if I can build these things, then I can do great things. Because, think about it. Remember when the iPhone was launched? Everyone wanted one. And when the Fitbit came out, everyone wanted one. I didn't do any exercise, yet I wanted a Fitbit. I just did. When the Kindle came out, everyone wanted one. My mother used to cry so that I would read books. It wasn't a big thing, but the Kindle came out and suddenly I'm a reader. Everyone wanted a Kindle. And everyone wanted to be on Facebook. And then your parents joined and everyone wanted to find somewhere else to be. But everyone wants to be on Facebook, and everyone wants to go viral on TikTok. So these platforms are changing the dynamic of the world that we're in, and they're technology platforms, and that's what makes the difference, is that we embed technology into the world we're in, and boom, we have success. So why is it that the world is littered with technological failure? Littered with startups that haven't been able to get off the ground. They're technological. They look exactly like Facebook. They've got things off the ground. They're doing stuff that's more technologically advanced than we could even imagine, yet they have failed. They've got technology. It's got to be something else. And so I spent my life trying to look at what this was. And I'm a person who's about frameworks. And so I wanted to understand, how do you build these successful businesses inside a technological world? And I came up with these 4 things. Mobile, social, data, and the Internet of Things. And I built my businesses off the back of this. They needed to be mobile, they needed to be social, they needed to have data components, and they needed to embed themselves in this thing called the Internet of Things. Quite simply, it did this. Mobile took technology and put it in everybody's hands. It made technology easy to use. Everywhere you went, you could have it. Social meant that we could move from beyond just having technology and using it to connect with people. And that connection with people had never been done before. And social allowed us to be able to build these connections, these relationships, these networks that we never experienced, and that became something that we really wanted. And data was a conversation about there is so much data on the planet that resides in this digital ecosystem. Is there not a way that we could leverage this, store this, manage this, put it into play so that we could become more intelligent? And the Internet of Things, which if you aren't aware, is just a very simple thing where we use sensors to send information back and down from the Internet. But what the Internet of Things did is it made other things smart. It made my watch smart. It made the kettle smart. It made the fridge smart. It made people smart. No, sorry, it didn't. But the thing is this, is that that's what it was. And so I'm looking at this thing and I'm going, if everything can just be filtered through this framework of mobile social data and the Internet of Things, you can find the businesses that will succeed. And the way I looked at it was I said, well, if you could have these intersections, and you had a mobile road and a data road and an Internet of Things road and a social road, and at that intersection, if that was your business idea, it would succeed. And it worked for me for a long time. And then something really annoying happened. We took this model into the retail industry, and we applied it, and something was missing. E-commerce. And I could fit it into this model, but it sort of always felt a little bit out. And now instead of having 4 things, when I applied it into retail, I had 5. And then e-commerce became more ubiquitous, and everyone was using it, and I needed to try and find some other way. And then something really annoying happened. Someone then developed something called artificial intelligence, and then we had robotics, and then we have biomimicry, and then we have nanotechnology, and my list of 4 really simple, fancy things that could really help us to understand technology and how to succeed became a myriad of things that if I put them all up on the slide, you would get confused immediately, and that would only be 10% of what's happening in the technological world right now. And so the problem that I had was that my simple model, mobile social, data, Internet of Things, my simple model was crumbling beneath me because of the exponential rate that technology would develop. Not the same technologies getting better. Not the rate at which mobile phones just got better. I mean, that was happening. But the breadth in which technology was impacting every single part of our lives was just so fun. It was so fundamental that we could no longer use a model like this. And then I realized something that was so important. And that is that the model needed to shift. We had to relook at what we were doing again and go back to the original question. How do you succeed in a digital world? And so we relook at this. And we go, there's a problem in our midst. Technology is not the win. The whole world is telling us it is. They're highlighting it is, but it's distracting us. Technology fails unless it means something to somebody. Think of all the most successful pieces of technology. You're probably holding them in your hand or you have them in your bag right now. Why? Because you're using them. They're a part of your everyday life. Technology fails unless it means something to somebody. And that was the whole point of my 3rd book, Human-Centric, was to try and get this message across, that technology will fail unless it means something to somebody. And my previous model forgot about that, because what it said is if you want to succeed in the technological world, in the digital economy, if you want to succeed there, focus on the tech. And all of a sudden, things changed. And I realized I want to succeed in a digital economy where people live and breathe and have space and be. And so because of that, I suddenly realized we've got to focus this on the people in the conversation. To succeed in a digital economy, it is not a technology conversation. It's a people conversation. And this is the thing we missed. This is the guideline that we missed off the back of that. And so if I read this whole sentence to you again and just highlight something else. Remember when the iPhone was launched? Everyone wanted one. Remember when the Fitbit was launched? Everyone wanted one. When the Kindle came out, everyone wanted one. Everyone wanted to be on Facebook. Everyone wanted to go viral on TikTok. Some people should never be allowed to go viral on TikTok. But what happens is that this shift is so key, and it's always been there in front of our eyes, that the success factor is the people adoption of what we're doing, the impact that we make in people's lives. You look at these big tech businesses, it's not because they're technical, it's because they gave us convenience, efficiency, entertainment. These are the things that matter to people and that help us kind of build our lives around it. And so we adopt these things. Why? Because it's better for us. Our society grows better because of the right technologies, not worse. Or at least it should. And so I started to ask these different questions in this new model. And I said to myself, well, if we wanted to now put this on people, what do we ask? Well, the first thing we need to realize in all of this is that we ask the questions around what technology shifted in the way in which people interact. So how did technology change the economy that we're in? That's what we're talking about. So the three questions were simple. How do we interact with the world? Because we interact differently. Most of you are staring at your phones, hopefully tweeting about me or telling people how great I am. I can only hope, but it's probably your wife or your significant other asking where you are. But you're communicating differently in a digital economy because that's the way it is, right? Okay? So then we say, well, how do we build relationships? Some people in this world, lots of people in this world have built digital relationships that have led into some of the best relationships of their world. And so how do these relationships, how are they created and built in this newer digital economy? And then finally, how do we access knowledge and information and intelligence? And these are three things that are shifting so quickly in our models and in our digital economy. So we look at these questions and we come up with these things. So I want to unpack this a little bit more for you. So here's the thing. First one I said was what's changing in the way you interact. So I'm talking about context. Context is this thing about wherever I am, the things around me that I'm using and I find myself in at any given time. It's your environment, the context in which you find yourself right now. So what's shifting in the way in which people experience their context are things like this. We comparison shop inside someone else's shop. Could you imagine doing that in a relationship? Comparisons shopping while your girlfriend's right there for other girlfriends. It's not really nice, but it's happened in the retail sector so abundantly that this is what we do. And so we know that our customer is sitting in our store, and just because they're in our store, they're not our customer yet. Because it's very simple for a person to stand inside a local retail bookstore and buy a book from Amazon Kindle standing in that store. It's possible that your retail outlet could sell the product, but not actually make the sale. And so this is how technology has changed the context. The other thing that it changes is I understand more about myself as a human being. Why? Because I've got sensors checking me all the time. And so I know that when I ran my 20 meters this morning, that I burned 3 calories, and I feel good about that. And so the context in which I'm in, and when I go and do my fitness and health, we need to understand that I'm in a space where I have knowledge and I have this new context that's implementing and influencing the way in which I am as a human being. So my question is, what is happening in your customers' audience, in your children's lives, in your friends' worlds? What is happening there that shifts the context of what they're facing? The next one is relationship. And the thing with relationship is that this has changed fundamentally. I don't know if anyone here had the privilege of dating people 15 years ago and then had the misprivilege of having to redate other people now in this world. It's very different. What would happen is that 15 years ago, you would sit down and you would have a conversation for your first date. You would ask questions like, what's your favorite color? What do you enjoy doing? Are you an axe murderer? These would be normal first date questions. Today, you would be lucky to get a first date. Like that's the end goal, is the first date. You're pretty close to marriage at that point. Because you've been through maybe a virtual, or even if you were lucky, it was a real introduction. Someone shook your hand and quietly said hello, and then you found them on Facebook and started stalking them. Realized this is someone you could be with. And then as you decided that, you thought, well, let me friend request. And then she said yes, and you went, we're in. But you're not in, because friends on Facebook is a whole dynamic. Like there's stuff you can't do and say, and you don't just message, because that's absurd. And then you kind of move through this, and then you get a WhatsApp number, and you move your way through the WhatsApp number, and then you find yourself with a conversation taking place over WhatsApp, and this is incredible. And eventually you arrive first date, and the only thing that you don't know about them at this point is what their voice sounds like. And that's the new and interesting information that you're going to find out this evening. And so the dynamic in which relationships are built, sustained, managed, and function have changed completely inside this digital world. And why? Because we choose to. Because the majority of people in this world would like to keep someone at bay until I am pretty certain that you're not an axe murderer. And so the last one is this idea of intelligence. And what I'm getting at here is that the way in which we access information, the way in which we retain information is different. The intelligence that's on that information and what we can and should be able to do with it has changed. So let me explain it like this. Have you ever played the game Trivial Pursuit? General knowledge game that we all ask questions and we find out how intelligent everyone else is in the room. 15, 20 years ago, you would play that and you would find out who had good general knowledge. They would restore this information in their head and then expel it in these games. Today, you can't get through a round without consulting a search engine of sorts because people don't retain information. I'll give you another example. What is your significant other's cell phone number? Chances are you don't know it anymore. Why? Because it's written under loved one inside your phone, and you click loved one, and it rings loved one, and we don't need the number. We don't go into WhatsApp and type the number in. We click on pretty picture, and then that's the one that gets people to our door. We don't retain information. I still, to this day, know my phone landline number when I was a child, 031-764-5461. I do not know my wife's cell phone number like that, and she does know, and we've had a small argument about it. But the thing is that we don't retain information. We retain links to information. You don't know stuff anymore. You know where to find the stuff you need to know when you need to know it. Which is such an interesting insight to the way in which brands and businesses and societies can operate. We don't need people to learn and engage and understand and kind of just fill their minds with stuff. We need people to understand that everybody else has done that, and we have a whole resource available that you can connect with. And as you need that information, we can draw from it. Which means that our human brains get used for things like decision making and working out how to be a better society and a better business. We don't have to hold all this information. We get to use that resource differently. And that's what's shifting. And then you take onto that and you put a whole artificial intelligence framework on top of that, and you start to realize something really, really interesting. That computers and technology can do all the thinking that you don't want to do. Let me take this back a few steps. You used to have to show all your calculations in your maths exams. Now you can just say, we used a calculator. And they do all the maths, and then you just provide the answer. But it was your brain that worked out what maths to put into the calculator. You didn't need to know the outcome of the calculation. You just needed to know which one would give you the right answer. And so now we do that, but now we've got calculators that are on steroids, and they're answering all sorts of things. And people are worried that they're going to take our jobs. I'm like, they can have those jobs because they're terrible jobs. The jobs we want to do are jobs that bring the best out in humanity. And that's not repetitive tasks over and over and over again. It's the tasks that lean into our creativity and our energy and our passion for things that we have. Let's do more of that as a society. And so this framework, context, relationship, intelligence, is the way in which I view the world right now. And so, not all tech is successful. Only the tech that people use. That's the tech that's successful. If you want to drive into tech, don't ask yourself what tech. Ask yourself, what do people do? How do I make their lives better? How do we use technology to make that difference? And so, the way in which I look at the world right now, and the way in which I find success in a digital world, is I ask myself these things. What context do the people that I want to make a difference in their lives for, what context do they face? What context do they find themselves in? Well, how do their relationships define them? How do their relationships work? How do they engage in relationships on an ongoing basis? And where do they access their intelligence? And how is that built? These questions, these three questions, have built some of the most successful businesses in the digital revolution that we're in. But bear something in mind. Some of them are not even technological businesses. but they modeled this and found successes inside a digital economy. Some of them, and most of them, are technologically driven businesses, and that's great. But what I'm saying now is remember the first question. How do we find success in a digital economy? We find success in a digital economy by making an impact in people's lives, by understanding their context, their relationship, and the intelligence that's at their disposal. And this framework can help all of us understand how to be better business people, better entrepreneurs, better partners in relationships, and better parents, and better people in the long run. And that's my hope for a message like this, is stop focusing and chasing technology. You will just run yourself in circles. Start being empathetic instead of technopathetic, and build a world that's worth living in, that we'll all enjoy. Thank you very much.